Hello, welcome back to English Active Listening. I am your host, Alyssa, and I am so happy that you have decided to join me today for a conversation that could truly change the way you connect with the world around you. We talk a lot about speaking English, about grammar and vocabulary and pronunciation. But there is another side to communication that is just as important, perhaps even more important. And that is the art of listening. Have you ever been in a conversation where you felt like you were completely alone, even though someone was standing right in front of you? You were speaking, the words were coming out of your mouth, but the person across from you was a million miles away. It is a terrible feeling, isn't it? It makes you feel small, unimportant, and disconnected. Today, we are going to make sure that you are never the person making someone else feel that way. We are going to dive deep into the topic of active listening skills. This is not just about hearing the sounds that people make. It is about understanding, connecting, and building relationships that last. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's get into the details of how to become a master listener. I want to start by telling you that this is a skill that successful leaders, great friends, and loving partners all share. In fact, I have spent a lot of time studying effective communication, and I realized that listening is the secret sauce. It is the magic ingredient. Listening is so incredibly important because good listening is probably the easiest, most effective way to connect with other people and build strong, meaningful relationships. Think about the people you like the most. Are they the ones who talk about themselves non-stop, or are they the ones who make you feel seen and heard? I am sure it is the latter. Active listening is the exact opposite of passive listening, and unfortunately, we see passive listening all the time. You have probably experienced this yourself many times. You are telling a story, maybe about your day at work or a problem you are having, and the person you are talking to might technically be hearing some of what you are saying. Their ears are working. Sound waves are entering their brain, but they are tuned out. They are on autopilot. They are nodding their head, maybe saying, uh-huh, every few seconds, but they are not mentally engaged with what you are saying. They are thinking about their dinner, or their phone, or what they are going to say next. As the speaker, this experience can be very dissatisfying. It is discouraging. It makes you question why you are even bothering to share your thoughts. You might think, why am I even talking in the first place? They don't care. It shuts down communication. On the other hand, active listening looks, sounds, and feels completely different. It feels obvious when it is happening. Active listening means listening completely. It means bringing your whole self to the conversation. But before anybody does that well, before you can master the techniques I'm going to share with you today, there are two secrets, two absolute prerequisites to active listening that you need to know. The first prerequisite is that you have to commit. This sounds simple, but it is actually a mental shift that you have to make consciously. You have to put aside whatever else might be distracting you and make listening a real priority in that moment. We live in a world full of distractions. Our phones are buzzing, the TV is on, our minds are racing with to-do lists. To be an active listener, you have to push all of that to the side. Good listening is first and foremost a choice that you make every time somebody speaks. You have to say to yourself, for the next few minutes, this person is the most important thing in my world. It is a commitment to the other person, and it is a commitment to the relationship. Without this intention, all the techniques in the world will just look like tricks. You have to actually want to hear what they are saying. The second prerequisite is that it takes practice. Like any skill, whether it is playing the guitar, cooking, or speaking a new language, you have to work at it. You are not going to be a perfect listener overnight. It takes muscle memory. It takes effort. You might catch yourself drifting off, and that is okay. The key is to notice it and bring your attention back. The good news is that listening is not mysterious. It is not magic. It is not complicated. It is a set of behaviors that anyone can learn. So let's talk about 4 specific qualities of active listening that you can put into practice starting today. These are practical steps that will transform your conversations. First, active listening involves nonverbal communication. This is a huge part of how we communicate, often saying more than our words ever could. There are 2 sides to this nonverbal coin. On the one hand, you are demonstrating that you are engaged and paying attention through your own body language. Think about what your body is doing when you are truly interested in something. You lean in. You face the person. So when you are listening, you need to do these things consciously. You must put your devices completely away. This is a big one in our modern culture. If you are holding your phone, even if you are not looking at it, you are signaling that you are only half there. Put it in your pocket. Put it face down on the table. Better yet, leave it in another room. When you remove that barrier, the energy changes. You make eye contact. Now, this does not mean staring at them without blinking, which can be creepy, but it means holding a soft, attentive gaze. Your eyes say, "I am here with you." Your body posture is open and oriented toward the other person. Do not cross your arms tightly across your chest, which can look defensive or closed off. Turn your shoulders towards them. Relax your stance. This open posture invites them to come closer, metaphorically speaking. Now, on the other side of nonverbal communication, active listening also means you are noticing the speaker's nonverbal cues. There is a wonderful expression that says, "You listen with your eyes." I love that. It means you are not just using your ears to hear words. You are using your eyes to read the story their body is telling. Part of that means you are noticing what is happening with the person visually. What is their mood? What emotion are they showing? Sometimes people say, "I'm fine," but their face says the complete opposite. Do they look nervous? Are their hands shaking? Do they look frustrated, with a tight jaw? Do they look annoyed, perhaps rolling their eyes slightly? You can pick up on all of that by actively observing their nonverbal communication. If you are looking at your phone or looking out the window, you will miss all of this rich data. You will miss the real message. So, listen with your ears, but listen with your eyes too. Watch for the subtle changes in their expression, the way they hold their hands, the slump of their shoulders. This is where real empathy begins, because you are seeing the feelings behind the words. Second, active listening involves verbal communication. Now, you might think, wait, I thought listening was about being quiet? Well, yes, but active listening is dynamic. It is not just being a silent statue. Again, there are 2 sides to this. The most obvious part is asking good questions. Probably the most common pattern that good listeners demonstrate is that they ask a good, thoughtful question, and then they let the speaker fully answer it. They do not ask a question just so they can give their own answer. They ask because they want to know. Think about a good mental health therapist. If you have ever seen one or seen one in a movie, you know what they do. They will ask thoughtful, probing questions like, "How did that make you feel?" Or, "What do you think that means?" And then they stop talking. They stop talking for a while and let the client speak. They create a space for the other person to fill. Honestly, what we are paying for in many cases with therapy is just somebody to listen carefully to us. We crave that attention. We crave being heard. So a good question is a huge part of the listening pie. It is the key that unlocks the other person's thoughts. Instead of asking yes or no questions, ask open-ended questions. Instead of saying, "Did you have a good day?" which invites a simple yes, try asking, "What was the best part of your day?" This invites a story. It invites detail. And the other part of verbal communication is those small utterances that show the other person that we are following them. You know, the sounds, like, "I hear you." Yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes it is not even full words. It might just be, or "ah," or "oh, really?" These little utterances are called minimal encouragers in psychology. They serve a very specific function. They keep us engaged, preventing our minds from wandering, and they show the other person that we are following along. It is like giving them a little green light to keep going. It says, "I am with you. Keep talking. I am interested." If you sit there in total silence, the speaker might wonder if the connection has dropped or if you have fallen asleep with your eyes open. These little sounds are the glue that holds the conversation together. Third, active listening involves responding to what somebody just said. This is crucial. This is where you prove that you are actually listening and not just waiting for your turn to speak. So the pattern goes like this. You ask a question, they respond, for however long that takes. And at the end of their talking turn, you give an informed response to them. This closes the loop. So let's say you just asked a person what they have been up to lately. That is your opening question. And in their talking turn, they tell you that they have been doing hiking lately. They tell you about the trails they found, the fresh air, maybe a bear they saw in the distance. So you actively listen for a while they are talking, nodding, making eye contact, using your little hmms and ahs. And at the end of their talking turn, it is your turn again. This is the critical moment. This is where you show that you were actively following along and were interested in what they were saying. You can do this by reflecting back what you just heard. You might say something like, "Wow, that sounds like an exciting adventure. That is really cool that you are exploring nature like that." See what you did there? You validated their excitement. You showed you understood the emotion behind the story. Or you could ask another follow-up question based on what they said. You could say, "I had no idea that you were into hiking. How did you first get into that?" This shows curiosity. It shows you want to know the origin story. Of course, you could do a little bit of both, like I just did in that example. You could make an informed, reflective statement and then ask a follow-up question. That sounds dangerous but thrilling. Were you scared when you saw the trail end? The key is to respond to what they have just been saying. What you do not want to do, and please be careful about this, is just look at them blankly and not react when they are done talking. You have probably had somebody do this to you. You pour your heart out, you tell them about part of your day or something about your life, maybe something vulnerable, and they do not react. They just have this stone face, Or worse, they immediately change the subject. You say, "My dog is sick," and they say, "I need to buy new shoes." That is painful. That is not active listening. That is dismissal. If you want a gold star for active listening, if you want to be the person everyone loves talking to, then you have to respond to what they just said. You have to honor their words with a thoughtful reaction. It validates them as a human being. Fourth, and this is perhaps the hardest one for many of us, keep the focus on them and let them talk. Now, this one might seem obvious because you are listening, right? But it is harder than it looks. When you decide to go into that listening mode, just make a decision that this is going to be all about the other person talking and not about you. Human beings are naturally egocentric. We love talking about ourselves. It is our favorite topic. When someone tells a story about their vacation, our immediate instinct is to say, "Oh, I went there too. Let me tell you about my trip." We call this shift response, shifting the attention back to ourselves. Active listening requires a support response, keeping the attention on them. You must resist that temptation to jump in with your own story or to change the subject to your favorite topic. If they are talking about their struggle with learning English, do not jump in and talk about how hard it was for you to learn Spanish. Stay with them. Stay in their struggle. Ask them more about it. Keep your talking turns and questions concise. Do not go on 5-minute monologues. Ask a short question, give a short reflection, and then hand the microphone back to them. Stick to whatever topic they are interested in. If they want to talk about gardening, talk about gardening, even if you do not know a daisy from a rose. Be interested in their interest. Now, eventually, once they have done plenty of talking, there will usually be an opportunity later in the conversation for you to share your experiences. Conversations are a two-way street eventually. But my rule of thumb is to dedicate at least the first half of the conversation to pure active listening. Let them empty their cup before you try to fill yours. By the time it is your turn to speak, they will feel so heard and understood that they will be much more likely to listen to you in return. It creates a reciprocity of respect. Imagine if everyone practiced this. Imagine how much less conflict we would have. Imagine how much deeper our connections would be. When you focus entirely on the other person, you give them a rare gift. In a noisy, busy world, giving someone your full, undivided attention is an act of kindness. It says, "You matter. Your thoughts matter. Your feelings matter." And people will remember that. They may not remember exactly what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. They will feel valued. They will feel safe. And that is the foundation of every great relationship, whether it is with a colleague, a friend, a family member, or a stranger on the bus. So I hope these 4 tips help you listen completely in your next conversation. I hope you take the challenge to put your phone away, look people in the eye, ask good questions, and keep the spotlight on them. It might feel awkward at first, especially if you are used to jumping in and directing the conversation, but stick with it. The rewards are incredible. You will learn more because you are listening instead of talking. You will understand people better. You will find that people are drawn to you because everyone wants to be around a good listener. It is a magnetic quality. Now, before we wrap up today's session, I have a question for you. I want you to really think about this. Question of the day. Which one of these tips do you need the most work on? Be honest with yourself. Is it the nonverbal part? Are you addicted to checking your phone? Is it the verbal part? Do you forget to ask follow-up questions? Is it the responding part? Do you sometimes just stare blankly? Or is it the focus part? Do you love talking about yourself too much? There is no shame in any of these. We all struggle with them, but identifying your weak spot is the first step to improvement. I would love to read what you have to say below in that comment section. Please share your thoughts. Let's start a conversation down there. I read every single comment, and I am always so inspired by your honesty and your dedication to learning. And I do have 2 follow-up videos on listening coming soon. I am working on one about comprehensive listening, which is all about understanding complex information, and another on empathetic listening, which is about connecting with people's emotions on a deep level. Those are going to be fantastic, and I will link to those in the description below once they are posted, so make sure you keep an eye out for them. If you want to take your skills to the next level, I also have a suggestion for you to practice this week. Find one person, just one, and try to listen to them for 10 minutes without interrupting, without checking your phone, and without turning the conversation to yourself. Just 10 minutes. See what happens. See how their face changes. See how the energy shifts. I think you will be amazed by the results. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate you choosing to spend it here, improving yourself and your English. Remember, every conversation is an opportunity to practice. Every person you meet has a story to tell if you are willing to listen. So go out there, open your ears, open your heart, and listen actively. Thanks, God bless, and I'll see you in the next video. Now let's expand on this a little bit more, because I want to make sure you really have a deep understanding of why this matters so much. When we talk about English active listening, we are talking about more than just words. We are talking about cultural nuances. In many English-speaking cultures, eye contact is a sign of respect. If you come from a culture where looking someone in the eye is considered rude, this can be a big adjustment. But in the context of English conversation, if you look down, people might think you are hiding something or that you are bored. So practicing that eye contact, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, is a huge part of cultural fluency. It is part of the language just as much as verbs and nouns are. Let's go back to the idea of the shift response versus the support response, because this is where so many English learners, and native speakers too, get stuck. Imagine your friend, let's call him Mark, says, "I am so tired. I was working until midnight last night." A shift response would be, "Oh, me too. I was up until 1 a.m. watching a movie." See what happened? You took the ball from Mark and kept it for yourself. Mark is now alone with his tiredness. A support response would be, "Oh no, that sounds exhausting. Why were you working so late? Was it a big project?" Now you have passed the ball back to Mark. You are playing a game of catch, not a game of keep away. This makes Mark feel supported. It builds a bridge. This is also a great way to improve your English vocabulary. When you are listening actively, you are absorbing new words in context. If Mark says, "I was working on a frantic deadline," and you don't know the word frantic, you can ask. Active listening allows you to say, "I am sorry, Mark, I want to understand completely. What does frantic mean?" Most people love to explain things. It makes them feel smart and helpful. So active listening is actually a powerful study tool. You are turning every conversation into a mini lesson. You are not just a passive recipient of language, you are an active explorer. I also want to touch on the silence aspect again. In some languages, silence is comfortable. In English, particularly in American English, silence can feel awkward. We often feel a rush to fill the silence. But active listening requires you to make friends with silence. When you ask a question, count to 3 in your head. 1, 2, 3. Give the person space to think. Sometimes the best answers come after a moment of silence. If you jump in too fast, you kill the thought before it is born. So be brave enough to be quiet. Be confident enough to wait. Think about the host of your favorite talk show. Why are they good? Is it because they tell great jokes? Maybe, but usually it is because they get the guest to open up. They lean in. They laugh at the right moments. They look shocked at the right moments. They are riding the wave of the conversation. You can be the talk show host of your own life. You can make the people around you feel like celebrities just by the way you listen to them. And guess what? They will love you for it. They will want to be your friend, your partner, your colleague. And let's not forget the minimal encouragers we talked about. Right, I see. These vary from language to language. In Japan, for example, people nod and make sounds very frequently. In English, we do it too, but the timing might be different. Listen to podcasts, watch interviews on YouTube. Pay attention not to the person talking, but to the person listening. Watch what they do. Watch when they nod. Watch when they say, yeah. Mimic that. Imitate it. It will make your English sound much more natural and fluent. You will sound like a native listener, which is just as impressive as being a native speaker. Finally, I want to remind you that active listening is an act of generosity. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, being a listener is a radical act. It is a gift of your time and your energy. It says, I value you. And that is a universal language. It transcends grammar and vocabulary. It is the language of the heart. So as you go through your week, try to be that generous person. Try to be the one who listens. You might be the only person who truly listens to someone all day. You might be the highlight of their day just by giving them 10 minutes of your focused attention. So once again, thank you for being here. Thank you for wanting to be better. Thank you for being part of this community. I am Alyssa, and this has been English Active Listening. Do not forget to comment below with your answer to the question of the day. Which tip do you need to work on? Nonverbal, verbal, responding, or focus? I can't wait to read your answers. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell so you don't miss the next lesson on comprehensive listening, and share this with a friend who talks too much. Just kidding, but seriously, share it with someone who would appreciate it. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and keep listening. Bye for now.